Timeline fluency, review all year, and ACE star. You need your history notebook. As you watch the video, complete the timeline in your notebook. Pay attention to the speaker because you'll be asked to place special symbols on the paper to prove that you are watching it. The teacher will tell you where to place the symbols. If you do not have these symbols on your timeline, you will not receive credit for completion. You must watch the video and complete the tasks. Okay, so we have our new unit put in, my Westward Expansion unit page and my passport. If you are at home, you can print these things out. Go ahead and glue them into your notebook. I know those that came back to school found it a lot easier if they had already had it printed out. You can also write it. You don't have to necessarily print everything out. You can write this in there and then just divide up a page into 25 squares and answer as you go along. But keep in mind the due dates because they will be due on those days. These actually have two separate due dates because this passport covers a few things. All right, here we go. I'm going to go to my next blank page and I'm going to do the timeline first, something that we have not reviewed in a long time, but it's going to be super helpful, especially as you take your interim test this week. That's right. We are prepping for STAR, making sure that we are ready, and so we're going to take an interim test. It will cover a lot of the stuff that we've already done. There will be some stuff on there that we have not yet been introduced to, and that's okay. The great thing is that you covered a lot of it in 7th grade with your Texas history teacher. So we still have left to do Westward Expansion, Industrial Revolution, and the Civil War, which are all topics you covered in 7th grade too. All right, here we go. So I have my notebook here, and normally I turn it sideways to work on. I'm going to actually go across 2 pages just because we end up having a lot to write by now. The timeline is great for us in helping us remember stuff. Remember, during your interim test, you can grab a blank sheet of paper and write stuff down too for you. All right, so we haven't done this in a while, so I'm going to walk you through it step by step. So I'm going to start with drawing my line going straight across, and like I said, I'm going to go across 2 pages. There we go, right there. Now to remember my timeline, we have the dates that the state of Texas says we have to know. And so we're going to know our mnemonic phrase, my cat just vomited purple marshmallows after riding carousels, licking purple colored water. Ew, so gross. My cat just vomited purple marshmallows after riding carousels, licking purple colored water. Right there, let's go ahead and we're going to start filling it in. And so the my cat is of course going to be Magna Carta. And the Magna Carta is going to be in the year 1215. This goes back a long time before our country is founded, but it's important for us because when our colonists come over, they remember the Magna Carta. All right, then we have Jamestown, Virginia, and anytime I write Jamestown or see Jamestown, I'm going to change that S to a dollar sign, money, 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 because they were all about the money. And that is in 1607. My PM is going to be Plymouth, or as some kids like to say, Plymouth, Massachusetts. And in Plymouth, or Plymouth, Massachusetts, we turn our T to a cross. See the light shining down? Oh, because it was all about religion. And Plymouth, Massachusetts is founded in 1620. AR is going to be our American Revolution. It starts with the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, and it ends with the Treaty of Paris in 1783. The C is none other than Constitution, and the Constitution comes in 1787. Stop right there. We love our Constitution. So go ahead and give me a smiley face right there. There's your secret symbol. Make sure you have it. Smiley face right there. All right, LP, Louisiana Purchase. That is going to be in the year 1803. And then finally, CW is going to be Civil War, which you guys were able to learn about last year. It starts in 1861 and it ends in 1865. All right, these are the 7 dates that you have to know. You have to have these dates memorized. You have to know them. It's not enough just to have the dates memorized, though. We have to see where our information connects and how it connects. And so we're going to start right here in our England and then our colonies. My Magna Carta connects throughout from beginning all the way to the end. All the way to the end. The idea that we get is the idea of limited government, the LG. Limited government. The idea that those in government have to follow the rules that they set to make sure that they don't get that ultimate power. And so in 1607, when the colonists came to Jamestown, Virginia for economic reasons, they said, okay, we have limited government. We're going to add to it with representative government. There is my RG. How do I know they had representative government? Well, I know they had representative government because they had a House of Burgesses right there, a House of Burgesses. So why don't you right here where it says house, go ahead and draw me just a little bitty house, a square with a triangle on top. Show me a House of Burgesses. That is where the people had a voice to make decisions inside the government in Jamestown, Virginia. And so our colonists are gaining that voice. They're speaking up. And in Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1620, when those Puritans come for religious reasons, they're going to go, okay, limited government. We're going to have representative government. Notice it just keeps going. We're going to add to it with self-government. We are going to take it upon ourselves to create the government. The king didn't tell them to. In fact, they weren't really supposed to. But because they landed all the way here in Massachusetts, that is what they're going to do. How do we know they have that? Well, they have that because of the Mayflower Compact. We know that they have it with the Mayflower Compact. All right, so here we go. We have our colonists here. We have our colonies growing, doing well. Why are they able to do these things? Why are they able to have limited government, representative government, and then eventually self-government? Well, because of that idea of salutary neglect. The king isn't really paying attention to them. As long as he's getting his money, he's not really worried about what they're doing. And so the people in the colonies are gaining that voice. They're having rights. They're able to participate in government. Not if you were in England. If you were in England, you weren't able to do those things. But in the colonies, because of salutary neglect, they were able to. They were too far from the king. They were too far away for him to really start enforcing his laws. But one thing is going to change it all. It puts a whole damper at everything, and that thing is going to be none other than the French and Indian War. In the French and Indian War, those British colonists, that's my F&I war, want that land in the Ohio River Valley, and so they fight for that land, they win that land, they're ready to move on that land, but the king says, nope. He says stop at the Appalachian Mountains. So the colonists are going to get upset, and that is going to give us a series of events that will lead us into the American Revolution. How do I remember those series of events that lead us into the American Revolution? Well, if you remember your mnemonic phrase, it's really easy. Nate Smith saves quarters daily. Nate Smith saves quarters daily to buy better iPhones. He's saving up his quarters, making sure he's getting his money. These are my causes to the revolution after the French and Indian War. So what are those causes? We start with the Navigation Act. The fact that the colonies can only trade with Britain. Go ahead, give me a boat right there. Show me that Navigation Act. Give me a nice little boat. The Navigation Act, only trading with Great Britain, is one of the causes. Another act is going to be the Sugar Act, a tax on molasses, a tax that the colonists thought was unfair. It's going to result in smuggling. The next S, Nate Smith saves, that is going to be the Stamp Act, a tax on printed materials that they put a stamp on to say that you paid it. Colonists are upset with the Stamp Act, Sugar Act, and Navigation Act, and they're starting to raise their voice because remember, in their representative limited self-government, they had a voice. And so the king's going to send over more soldiers, and that gives us the Quartering Act, where the colonists are going to have to provide quarters or housing for our soldiers. Colonists are not happy. They're going to start telling the king how they're not happy, and he is going to pass the Declaratory Act, in which he says, you have to follow the law. It is the law that says you have to follow the law. So am I breaking one law or two? And then he decides to pass another tax, because remember, they're trying to pay off that debt from the French and Indian War, called the Townshend Act. This tax is collected at seaports. It's not collected from the store. The owners of the shops are going to pay it for glass, lead, paper, paint, tea, pretty much almost anything. And then the prices are going to go up, 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 which of course upsets the colonists even more. They're going to yell, they're going to yell, they're going to yell. And we get the Boston Massacre. 5 innocent colonists are killed. Were they really innocent? But we get the Boston Massacre. Soon after, we had that Tea Act, and that then gives us the Boston Tea Party. These Sons of Liberty are going to dump tea into Boston Harbor. With the Boston Tea Party, the colonists are upset. The king is upset, and the king is saying, you're going to have to pay it back, and so he passes the Intolerable Acts. The colonists cannot take it. They cannot tolerate them. Aren't they just being a little bit dramatic? The Intolerable Acts. And so the king closes the seaports in Boston, says you're going to have to pay back money. No town meetings, which means no limited representative self-government. The colonists are going to get upset. They're going to meet at the First Continental Congress, and that takes us to our revolution. All right, going to my revolution. How am I going to remember the events of the revolution? Well, of course, I have my V. My V is my timeline to remember the events of the revolution. And you guys had a contest a long time ago to come up with a mnemonic phrase to remember the events of the revolution. Thinking, okay, we're starting at the top. We're feeling really good. Lose, 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 lose. Turning points, work our way up. What was that mnemonic phrase that won to help us remember the events on the timeline? It is going to be, let's devour some very yummy tacos. Let's devour some very yummy tacos. The Lex is none other than Lexington and Concord. The shop turned around the world. Doesn't really rhyme, but we make it work. Lexington and Concord, they stood up to the British militia to fight against the British soldiers that were coming in. The Minutemen in Lexington.
Please call extension 52.
Ooh, look. We're being interrupted. We're being interrupted. Okay, sorry. Lexington and Concord, those Minutemen stand up to the British soldiers. All right, so let's devour. That D is none other than the Declaration of Independence, where we say we've had enough. We don't want to be a part of you anymore. That is, of course, July 4th. That's why we celebrate Independence Day, 1776. Unfortunately, we're not doing too well in the war. We're losing until this turning point when we start winning. Of course, that turning point, see how it turns, it goes back up, is going to be the Battle of Saratoga. What makes Saratoga so important to us is because the French are going to be our allies. The French are going to help us. All right, we start moving up. Let's devour some very. Very is going to be none other than Valley Forge. They're going to spend the winter at Valley Forge training troops, making sure we're ready for battle. And we do get ready with George Washington, Baron von Steuben, Marquis de Lafayette are going to help train us there. We're going to start winning some of those battles, and we get the Battle of Yorktown. That's a Y. Let's devour some very yummy. That's why we're going to win at the Battle of Yorktown. That is the last major battle of the American Revolution. It's going to be in 1781. The Revolution officially ends in 1783 at the top. T-O-P, see how we did that? T-O-P at the top. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 is going to end the revolution. See, I put T-O-P, 1783 is going to officially end the revolution, and the United States is now recognized as its own country. Let's devour some very yummy tacos. All right. During the revolution, actually, and right after, we do need a government, and that government we're going to have is called the Articles of Confederation. All right, our Articles of Confederation are right there. Now, we have some good things about our Articles of Confederation, and how do I remember those good things? I write upholds. Our new government, this new Articles of Confederation, what is going to be good about it is that it creates a union of 13 states. We love that. Go ahead, give me a heart right there. We love that we are a union. We love that we are going to work together. All right. The P, another really great thing is that it creates a post office, making sure that there's communication amongst the 13 states, that they can talk to one another. That is a huge deal. How would y'all survive without your cell phones, right? Think of the post office as that early text message, although it took weeks to get there. But before that, you might have been longer. All right, H is have treaties. They can make agreements with other countries, making sure that they can have treaties. Signing those treaties like we're going to sign to buy the Louisiana Purchase. The O is ordinances. Specifically, we like to look at the Northwest Ordinance, setting up a way for the territories to become states, that process for territories to become states. All right. The L is laws. They get to create laws. The only problem with creating laws is it's going to take an agreement of 9 out of 13 states to say we want it. And let's be honest, we know how hard it is to get states to agree. All right, the D is declare war. You want to make sure that only your federal government can declare war, not your states, because then we'd have all our different states going to war. And then the S is to sell land. They can sell that land to make sure that they can raise money. And so these are our good things about the Articles of Confederation, but of course, we also have the bad. There's my sad face. And so to remember my bad, P-A-C-T-S, PAPS, right there. And we start with no president, no real leader for the people, nobody to bring them together, nobody to tell them what's going on. The A is no army, and you might be thinking, but they just had a war. What do you mean no army? Well, all those people went home. They went back to their regular lives, and we kind of disbanded the army. The C is no courts. There's no court system. There's no judicial branch, which means there's nobody to interpret the laws. There's nobody in the federal government to really help and decide and interpret if what the legislative branch is doing is constitutional or not. The T is no taxation, which you might be going, woohoo, that's great, except you can't pay off your debt. And if you can't pay off your debt, are other countries going to come after you? Of course they are. And what does this all equal? It equals the states arguing right there. So they figure out it's not going very well. All of these bad things lead us into Shays' Rebellion, where they are upset about the taxes. Daniel Shay is going to lead a rebellion. Eventually, 1787, remember that's 4 years between 1783 and 1787. Our founding fathers are going to meet in Philadelphia, where they are going to write the Constitution. And when they write the Constitution, they are going to base it upon what they think is best for our country, goals for our country. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Now, that's the preamble. Those are my goals. How are they going to make sure those goals happen? Well, they are going to make sure that they happen by having 7 principles. 7 basic principles. This is the way that they can carry out their goals. The first principle, of course, being the idea of limited government. You can't just do whatever you want. And so in limited government, we have our branches, legislative, executive, and judicial, but they are stuck within the circle. They can't go outside the circle. The circle keeps their powers inside. All right, which then takes us to the idea that we have separation of powers. We decided following Baron de Montesquieu, Charles Montesquieu, making sure that we have different branches. And so we're going to get a legislative, executive, and judicial branch. But each branch is divided in its powers. They each have a job. You don't get to cross over into the other territory. You stay in your spot. All right, going along with separation of powers, we also have checks and balances, making sure that neither of those branches gain too much power. These separate branches, they're always watching each other. Judges can declare acts of the legislative branch and laws unconstitutional. The legislative branch passes laws, but the executive branch can veto them. Our executive branch also appoints our judges and things like that. So those arrows facing each other. Let's see, can I, look, I can go in just a little bit better for you to see. There we go. All right, so we have limited government, separation of powers, checks and balances. How do we make sure our people have a voice? Well, they have that voice with popular sovereignty, the people power. People power is popular sovereignty. You and I are the ones that have the power. We do that by voting. How do we keep that popular sovereignty power? Well, with our representatives. We elect representatives to be our voice. Our representatives do have a little bit of power. They do. But they get that power from the people. And if we don't like the way they're carrying out our government, we don't vote for them. Popular sovereignty. So we have our republicanism is representative government. REP, republicanism, is the principal name with our representative government. And we want to make sure that in that republicanism, that our representatives are upholding our individual rights, making sure that they are upholding our individual rights and we are protected in our individual rights. I always try to draw a shield and everybody says it's horrible. In the Bill of Rights, that protects our individual rights, those 10 amendments, making sure we know our hand signs. Make sure you review them if you need to. Now, besides the people having rights, we also make sure that our states have rights, and that is the idea of federalism, which we all know is amendment number 10. Look at how we did that. A 1 and a 0. Amendment number 10, making sure that we have federal power and state power. Sometimes there are things that they share, like making laws, collecting taxes, and sometimes their powers are divided. Only the federal government can declare war. The states are the ones that create our school system for us and things like that. So, federalism, 10th Amendment, state power, federal power, they share it and they divide it. And so we're going to have our Constitution set up for us, making sure that our people have a voice, and we'll notice that our country is expanding. We're getting bigger. We love that we're getting bigger, so go ahead, give me a heart above 1803. We're happy that we're getting bigger and we are expanding. And so we're going to buy the Louisiana Purchase from France under Thomas Jefferson, which gives us, of course, our presidents. Our presidents, I'm going to go ahead and actually switch colors just because it makes it a little bit easier for you to see. I know that. Our presidents, let's not forget who our presidents are. We say Will and Jill make more Quaker Apple Jacks. Will and Jill make more Quaker Apple Jacks, and that gives us, of course, Washington, the first president, the president that sets the precedent, Adams, XYZ affair, Alien and Sedition Acts, Jefferson, he's the one who makes the Louisiana Purchase and doubles the size of the United States. Will and Jill make, that's an M-A, so that tells me it is Madison, the War of 1812, which gives us the Industrial Revolution and ways to make ourselves feel good about getting Britain out. Monroe, Will and Jill make more, so there is my Monroe. Making sure right there, the era of good feelings, the Monroe Doctrine, the Missouri Compromise. Will and Jill make more Quaker Apple, that is none other than Quincy Adams. Unfortunately for Quincy Adams, he is elected in the corrupt bargain and he becomes the do-nothing president. Will and Jill make more Quaker Apple Jacks. That leads us number 7, President Andrew Jackson, a hero to some and a villain to many. All right, Louisiana Purchase doubles the size of the United States. That's going to actually start bringing us into our new unit, our westward expansion unit, because the question becomes in the territories, are they allowed to have slaves? Make sure you have those secret symbols so you can get credit. I know it's a lot, but it's something you want to study. It's something you want to review, because as you take your interim, you can get blank paper, write stuff down, drop your thoughts, brain dump right there.